All right, let me start here with y'all. If Trump was so wrong about Minnesota, why does everybody there suddenly sound and seem nervous? Answer that for me, because when people are innocent, they don't explain this much. They don't deflect, they don't panic, they just tell the truth. So let's roll this clip.
I think it's pretty clear to all of us exactly what this president is doing. He's targeting states and communities that he has a national political fight against and that he doesn't agree with. It's also a distraction from his own personal crimes that are out there being investigated while he's harassing others. So as Minnesotans, on January 1st, your health care costs are going to skyrocket. Groceries aren't any cheaper. Your community's no safer. And we have people that won't even communicate the most basic things amongst law enforcement, as we've always worked together. And it never mattered before who the administration was until this one. So this is what happens when your own federal government wages war against you. This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy, when you hear the Vice President of the United States talk about now white people won't have to apologize for being white. That's never happened once in my whole damn life. And I think everybody in this room knows what they're doing. So we're here today to say enough of this.
Notice the move. Trump didn't accuse him of anything in this clip, right? But Walz jumped straight into this is a distraction. That's politics 101 right there. When you don't want people asking questions, you accuse them of running from something. Classic projection, y'all. Just want to point that out. Now, here's the problem. If this is just political noise, why does the money keep showing up? Why does it keep popping up? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, because, once you leave the speeches and walk into the real world, I can't even say real world. But yeah, when you walk into the real world, the fraud isn't theatrical anymore. Sheesh. It actually has an address.
Here in Minnesota, massive fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong, and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. And if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working, midday. Children should be in here. And this place is licensed for 99 children. And this is the outside. There's no windows, no nothing. And like I said, they literally spelt the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota. The government is complicit with this, and this is just one of the hundreds of child daycare centers here inside of Minneapolis being ran by the Somali population. It's sad that it's happening here in Minnesota, and it stinks that it's happening and it's being labeled on the Somali population. However, that's just the facts of what's happening here inside of Minnesota. $1.9 million for this daycare center that can't even spell learning right.
This is where the conversation changes, right? Not tweets, not vibes. This is not accusations. A building that can't even spell learning. Y'all see that? Now, y'all see my thumbnails. I done misspelled a lot, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, on that scale, I wouldn't have messed that one up. What is that? Learning. Learning, huh? And they got almost $2 million. That building. Middle of the day, no kids, no cars, no noise. But the checks are cleared. It's crazy. And they want you to believe that this was an accident that nobody noticed, that nobody knew. Yeah, okay. And instead of accountability, what do we get next? Insults.
So we are sick and tired of the president waking up one day and deciding to put forth falsehoods and demonize whole communities, while the ignorant people that support him then take the lies that he's spreading and use it as a fact.
Every scandal has this moment.
So we are sick.
Not remorse, not concern, not even curiosity, just contempt. That's it. Notice, She never says the fraud didn't happen. She never explains the money ever. She just tells you you're too dumb to ask, basically. That's what I get when I hear that type of stuff right there. That's not leadership. That's someone that's used to never being challenged. But here's what things get pretty interesting, Kingdom. Team Think. I have to address y'all properly. I haven't even said that in so long. We don't even know who Team Think. But here's where it gets interesting. When even Democrats start pretending. Let me go and get this thing from the top.
Well, I don't understand what difference that makes to anyone else. How would anyone else be approached or confronted if they stole money from someone? They would all be acknowledged and have to go forward with the consequences of their actions. You know, we're sitting here bearing the brunt of everything: tax hikes, gas taxes, property taxes, boating taxes, gas taxes. We can't go anywhere. We can't go fishing. And he's afraid to offend someone. Well, what about me? I know my town, we're all offended that we're paying for all of this fraud to go on, and it's just coming out now when they've known about it for years. What's going to happen now? And let's just call it what it is. It's stealing. It's not, It's stealing. You're stealing from the state of Minnesota. You're stealing from the taxpayers that make this state the great state that it is. And how are we going to recoup from that? Well, I don't understand what difference that makes to...
This matters because it's not Republicans attacking Democrats. This is a Democrat saying, we've known for years about this. Tell me that's not the quiet part out loud, y'all. They weren't worried about shopping fraud or stopping it, rather. They were worried about offending people. Taxpayers be damned. And while the money disappears, guess what else? The talking points, they just stay the same.
You cannot talk about any achievement that the city of Boston has had in safety, jobs, and economic development, in education, without talking about the Somali community that has lifted our city up. We are proud and we are grateful for our Somali community and for our Somali American neighbors. Boston and the country are clear that hate has no place in our society. We will use every attack to actually strengthen and expand the services available, to empower and work alongside our community members who are already doing so much good in the world and setting an example for the rest of the country. You cannot talk about any achievement that the city of Boston has had in safety, jobs, and economic development, in education.
I was gonna let it go again. My bad, y'all. I went 8 seconds past it before it registered. It happens. But I hope y'all was listening carefully, because this isn't about attacking immigrants, right? It's about refusing to admit basic reality. I mean, simple. You can appreciate a community and still admit when systems are being abused. But politicians, they don't want nuance. They want applause, and applause doesn't audit bank records. Now, ask yourself this. If everything is fine, right? Why are city leaders warning about ICE?
I am increasingly concerned because of the chaos that is being caused by these ICE agents, that somebody is gonna get seriously injured or killed. Somebody is gonna get seriously injured or killed. And whether that is an ICE agent or a community member, we all know the tinderbox that could explode because of it. We all know that the federal government is looking for reasons to deploy more and more people to Minneapolis and blue cities around the country. We all know that we cannot afford to lose a single Minneapolis resident because they showed up and decided to protect their neighbors, because they showed up and decided to express their constitutional right to free speech. And so that concern is deep. It is held, by the way, not just by me and our residents and the people who are standing up behind me. The concern about getting somebody killed is also held by our police officers.
Now, I hope y'all was reading in between the lines with that, right? You know, when leaders start framing law enforcement as the danger, that's not concern. That's resistance right there. They're not saying let's go out here and try to fix the fraud. They're saying, hey, don't come looking at all. Don't look this way at all. And that's exactly why Trump is involved. Because this didn't start yesterday. And It actually didn't start in Minnesota. This is what I'm learning today. It started, how do I say this? Way higher.
Okay, I hope you're ready for this video. This won't be a short one. I'm going to tie in exactly how I believe Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Tim Walz, Ilhan Omar, Tony West, Kamala Harris, all of these people are linked together with the fraud that we're seeing unfold right now. And I'm going to explain to you how it is. See, it starts way back when Barack Obama was president. When he was president, he was in charge of appointing somebody to the Department of Justice Civil Division. It's Tony West. And you say, well, who's Tony West? It's Kamala Harris's brother-in-law. So he appoints Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, Tony West, but not only does he do that, but he removes the restriction that Congress has to approve any settlement over $100,000. See, Congress used to have to approve that. Once Barack took away that restraint, DOJ can sue for anything with nobody's approval. They could sue for a gazillion dollars, and Congress doesn't have to approve for a settlement. Why is the settlement important? Because in a settlement, you don't have to disclose all the law firms involved. You just settle. Now, people complain when Tony West was settling all of these cases. They were all minority-based cases. People suing the Justice Department for minority-based this, minority-based that. The Justice Department, what they would do because of Tony West is settle. 50 million, 40 million, $1 billion, nobody knew because they wouldn't release it because Barack Obama already signed off saying, you don't got to tell nobody. So Kamala Harris's brother-in-law was taking all of this money, giving it to all of these law firms. Now, you know, Barack, he's an attorney. Michelle Obama, she's an attorney. So all of these attorneys out there were getting all of this money from the DOJ now, being fed and loving it. Tony West, another attorney, he's now the head of Uber. That's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that later. He's the head of Uber legal department. But now all of these attorneys are eating right now. Nobody knows how much money is going on. Kind of like with BLM. When people were donating all this money to BLM, but BLM wasn't giving money to the people who it was intended for. That's what these law firms were doing. They were keeping the funds. So people were suing the Justice Department on behalf of minorities. Minorities weren't getting the money, though. The law firms were getting the money. So after they saw how this scheme was working, now you got Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar, Michelle Obama. What was Michelle Obama big for? We got to feed all these kids. This is about nutrition. We got to make sure every kid has a meal. That was Michelle Obama. Ilhan Omar says, oh, we could do that in Minnesota. I'll start a whole new program. So now she's using all of the legalese from Michelle Obama, go to Minnesota. They create this feeding our future, no kid starves. And where did all the money end up? In Kenya, China, Somalia. Who's linked to Kenya? Barack Obama. Kenyan relatives. Who's in China? Tim Walz. He has all these Chinese connections. All the banks in China know who Tim Walz is. He was a big politician. He's got connections over there. So when it came time for the Democrats to choose, after Biden says, I can't do this, they chose Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris linked in with who? The DOJ already. Tony West. He already went to Uber. But guess who's also they're linked in with? Tim Walz in Minnesota through Ilhan Omar. So now you got all of these people who are all linked together, already got previous dealings with each other. The Democrats are like, why don't we run a primary? Barack is like, we're not running a primary. We're going to appoint Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, you're going to choose Tim Walz. Everybody's like, who the hell's Tim Walz? See, Tim Walz has already been deep in it with Ilhan Omar and Michelle Obama's food programs. They've already been deep in scamming already. So they need to choose somebody that can keep it rolling. You can't choose an outside Democrat. You can't choose a Pete Buttigieg or anybody like that because they're going to be like, what the hell is all this going on? Now, when Trump finally won and he came in and he says, we're cleaning this all up, everybody started resigning. The head of Social Security office resigning. All of these people started resigning because they knew the jig was up. All of this money that they were putting up for minorities and putting up for illegals, it was all just being swindled. Nobody was being taken care of. All these cities are going bankrupt right now because the feds weren't funneling this money to it. The states were like, well, we'll fund and you guys reimburse us. And the feds were like, okay, $9 billion is flowing out of this country into over other banks. Now, if any bank here in America was like, we're getting billions and billions of dollars put into our banking system, what the hell's going on? But if you're doing it in China, you're doing it in Kenya, you're doing it in Somalia, you're doing it in Sweden, you're doing it in the Cayman Islands, you're putting this money all over the place. American banks don't know what's up. You can even put it in banks over in Ukraine. Ukraine was kind of getting money on. It's like, hey, we'll help you guys move the money. As long as, we got our man Zelensky in power, we will help you move the money. Everything was happening right in front of everybody's faces. Now you want to claim, oh, it's not as big as what it is. I did a story about this 2 years ago, talking about Tim Walz and Tony West and all of this fraud. 2 years ago, I was talking about it. It's now 2025, and people are finally saying, hey, Tim Walz is involved in fraud. I said it 2 years ago. I said, this dude is in bed with Tony West. Tony West was running fraud at the DOJ. Everybody was talking about investigating Tony West, and all of a sudden it just disappeared. When Trump won, it disappeared. Like, what happened? Were we investigating this guy or what? He was the one scamming the DOJ. He was using minorities to fund all of these law firms who were in turn giving money to Kamala Harris, an attorney. Michelle Obama, attorney. Barack Obama, attorney. Tony West, attorney. So all of our tax dollars are flowing to all these attorneys. Where's the money at? And once Barack Obama already knew Obamacare was a scam from the get-go, he was like, this is going to be too easy. We've got illegals coming in from Somalia, illegals coming in from all over the world. We can have them apply for and use Medicaid, Medicare, all of these services, creating dummy companies and everything else to make sure we trap the tax dollars in our scheme. We don't let the Americans into the scheme. We do the scheme with the people coming into the country that don't know how our laws work. We're the attorneys here. We just need a bunch of patsies. So all of these people in the Somalian community has no idea they were being played. You guys are being used. You got autistic kids, you got hungry kids, you need housing, you need lodging. All of these people were being used by a group of attorneys who had this grand scheme on how to get tax dollars under everybody's noses using programs and NGOs. I'm telling you, this goes way deeper than what a lot of people think. Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar are not masterminds. This was a mastermind affair. This right here started at the very, very top a long time ago, knowing we could get tax dollars out of these people if we play by the rules. The only way they could play by the rules is if they got people that didn't really know the rules. You need people who think this is on the up and up, but you're using scams to get there. You're using a collection of people who know exactly how to work through the loopholes. You're getting kickbacks. So a lot of politicians were getting kickbacks. A lot of agencies out there were getting kickbacks. You can't tell me these people saw all that money come through and they didn't know the wiser. You can't tell me that. These are intelligent people with degrees, with experiences in law, with experience in politics, experience in government agencies. And you telling me a group of Somali pirates who probably didn't even have high school educations tricked everybody out of $9 billion? I'm not buying it. Now Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar are sitting on the hot seat and the other people in the backdrop like, yeah, don't say our name. Whatever you do, don't say our names. I said y'all names 2 years ago. I think we better start looking into it.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar aren't masterminds. They're middle management, if you will. This kind of fraud requires lawyers, NGOs, bureaucracy, silence, and political protection. And Trump didn't create this problem. Seems like he interrupted it. And that's why they hate him. That's why they panic. That's why they call it a distraction. Because, once something hits a system built on silence, the whole thing starts to shake. This isn't left versus right. I tell y'all that quite often. This particular time is taxpayers versus a political class that thinks oversight is optional. Trump wasn't reckless. You ask me, he was early. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, that's exactly what I want you to put. Early, not wrong. Boom. That way I know who actually watched. And shout out to the mixed reviews about my cap too. Some of y'all say y'all love it. Other people like, yo, I look silly. No, I'm playing. It really don't bother me. Like that. Yeah, man. I'm saying, you with the cap, bro. I'm saying? You gotta, pat down the hair. You gotta pat it down. I don't want to be messed up. But nah, man. Other than that, I'll never tell y'all to buy any merch below the video. But I mean, hey, get you a mug. I got mine on the way. Can't wait to be sitting here sipping with my panic mode mug. But other than that, y'all be safe. Happy holidays. Go check on a friend today. And hopefully you spend some time with your family. You could be saving their life. Peace.